Hi, Mark Orwoll is at it again. Thanks for being here. I know I've said this before, but today I really mean it. The program this afternoon is a very special one because I'm going to piss off an entire continent.
Let the swing begin. Mark Orwoll is at it again, and that cat is swinging. Yeah, that cat is swinging. The party don't stop.
All right, here's the scene. 6th Avenue and 50th Street, right outside Radio City and a few blocks from Times Square. 3 in the afternoon and the sidewalks are packed. A tall guy in a Stetson, cowboy boots, and a belt with an outsized buckle is walking with his wife directly in front of me. Actually, more like sauntering than walking. I can't get around them because of the oncoming crowds. You know, Hon, Tex says to his wife, we done walked 3 blocks and ain't one person said howdy. Imagine the rudeness of New Yorkers. No, the fault was mine trying to walk the shortest route through the constant tourist crunch rather than the fastest route. My bad. I didn't blame the out-of-towners flowing from Rockefeller Center, the Museum of Modern Art, St. Pat's, and Madame Tussauds onto 6th Avenue. They're welcome in New York. Have a nice visit. Leave your money behind, and we'll see you next year. New York City isn't the most visited city on earth. Bangkok has that dubious distinction, but it sure feels like it sometimes. Nonetheless, we New Yorkers have come to an understanding with tourists. I don't expect to find a grocery store in Times Square. It's doubtful that I'll spot a florist next to Madison Square Garden. I'm unlikely to see a plumbing supply store across from the Met. Our restaurants would be packed even without tourists. New Yorkers are tough, I guess, because we don't feel aggrieved by any of this. We're certainly tougher than Europeans when it comes to tourism. We don't feel that tourists are the cause of all our problems. Across Europe, anti-tourist protests have frightened away would-be visitors. Tourist go-home parades in Paris, water pistol attacks on outdoor diners in Barcelona, stern government warnings to Amsterdam visitors. But tourists are not the problem. Who's more willing to protect nature? Someone who has reveled in it or someone who can't stand the outdoors? The answer is obvious, but there's a cottage industry in writing stories to make travelers feel guilty about visiting Antarctica. The restrictions on how many and which kinds of ships can sail there are closely monitored by the Antarctic Treaty System, the International Association of Antarctica Tour Operators, and the International Maritime Organization. No more than 100,000 visitors make landfall annually. Now, for comparison, Morristown, New Jersey's National Historical Park, known for little more than Washington's Army having camped there one winter, gets more than 250,000 visitors a year. The travelers, I mean Antarctic tourists, that is not Washington soldiers, wear a virtual spacesuit of germ-free boots, pants, gloves, and jackets, and must stay on specific paths under the no-nonsense leadership of trained guides, and aren't even allowed to lean against the rocks if they're tired. Trust me, anyone who has visited the White Continent is far more likely to support its environmental preservation than someone who's never been there. Who's more willing to support international artists than a person who's visited the Prado, the Met, and the Uffizi? Who's more open to international understanding than someone with 50 stamps in their passport? Who's more eager to prevent cross-border tensions, protect historic structures, or promote a city's culture than a world traveler? Tourists are not the problem, so stop saying that. Europeans complain that they can't even get a table at a popular restaurant in their own cities because of the tourists. Why can't a tourist eat at home before they arrive here? Ask the Europeans. But no, they have to wait until I'm hungry. Then they decide they absolument must have a loup en croûte. Translation, bat tartare. Et les bistrots du Bernard. But let's get Bernard's opinion. Oh, Bernard, what do you think of the long lines of people waiting for a table at your eatery? Do you agree that tourists should be banished? Excuse my French. Vous êtes fou, j'ai travaillé toute ma vie pour avoir un restaurant qui marche. Je suis un chef exceptionnel. Enfin, les gens le comprennent et apprécient ma cuisine. J'ai fait enfant des bénéfices. J'ai pu payer correctement mon personnel et il me restait même un peu d'argent pour emmener ma femme en vacances. Bonheur la touriste, ou vous ne pensez pas? Translation, I disagree. I really should get somebody who knows how to speak French to say that part. The chief tourism issues that have been raised in the recent past are specific, but none of them can be directed at travelers per se. Here we go. Cruise ships. I recall being horrified at the sight of a 2,000-passenger ship sailing through Venice's Giudecca Canal 10 years ago. Why would they allow that, I wondered. They finally tamped that down in 2021, placing limits on the number and size of ships that could enter the city. Famously, Venice also began charging a fee to day trippers, currently $5.45 US up to $10.90, depending on how far in advance you book. They did this in the hopes of limiting visitor impact. At least they were doing something. But Barcelona, the epicenter of anti-tourism, has done almost nothing to curb cruise ship arrivals, which have averaged around 800 per year since 2010. That's about 2.5 cruise ships per day, making it the busiest cruise port in Europe. Germany and Italy have seen double-digit growth in cruise arrivals. Passenger volume in Europe overall increased by 6.5% from 2019 to 2023, which is the most recent set of figures available. Overall, Europe is doing little to nothing to control tourism from cruising. Don't blame the tourists. Amsterdam licenses beer bikes, canal boat party cruises, prostitution, cannabis cafes, and guided pub crawls. Then the city has the temerity to warn off young male visitors lured by the beer bikes, canal boat party cruises, prostitution, cannabis cafes, and guided pub crawls, all of which have been licensed by the city of Amsterdam. It's not unlike Las Vegas warning people not to visit Vegas just so they can drink and gamble. No one approves of drunken louts making nuisances of themselves. So maybe we shouldn't license the attractions specifically designed to attract drunken louts. Don't blame the tourists. The high cost of living is a problem everywhere, I know. Where I live, smart locals avoid Times Square at all costs. The swarms of people, the high prices, the going out of business trinket shops that never seem to go out of business as much as we might wish. We, most of us at least, don't lease an apartment in overly popular Williamsburg. The high rents, the boutiques crowding out the shoe repair shops and grocery stores. If you're an in-the-know New Yorker and you want a knish with mustard, walk over to the Madison Avenue guy and buy it from his cart, not the man in front of the Empire State Building who charges double. Smart residents should know better than to pay tourist prices in their own hometown. Don't blame the tourists. Ooh, vacation rentals. This is the big one. A key part of the problem in Europe and elsewhere is the rise of vacation rentals, Airbnb, Vrbo, etc. This is not a tourist issue. This is a zoning issue. Vacation rentals take housing off the market for locals in favor of short-term guests. But whose fault is that? The traveler who stays in the apartment? Or the lack of regulations that encourage the rentals? This is not rocket science, folks. Cities that default on their obligation to create humane zoning legislation, such as regulating vacation rentals, are the culprits, not the individuals who rent those places. New York City, for example, doesn't permit short-term rentals for an entire apartment or house for fewer than 30 consecutive days. Any less than that, the host must reside there and can rent to no more than 2 guests at a time, who legally must have access to the entire apartment. All short-term rentals in NYC must be registered with the city, and companies like Airbnb and Vrbo can only list licensed residences on their websites. Suddenly, since that regulation went into effect in 2023, running your apartment as a short-term rental looks a lot less attractive than before, freeing up housing stock for the locals. Barcelona finally has addressed this issue by effectively banning vacation rentals, but not until 2029. Amsterdam has limited property owners from renting their properties to tourists for more than 15 days a year, down from 30. But no European nation is curtailing international flights in any significant way. Cruise arrivals grow unabated. Short-term rentals elsewhere on the continent continue to flower, all with the covert blessing of the European national and municipal governments, ravenous for tourist dollars. And you're going to squirt a water gun at a foreign traveler and their children at a cafe because of the ineffective legislators that you elected? Sacre bleu, dude. Do you still pull the wings off flies? Don't blame the tourists. Europeans choose their leaders just as in the United States. That's a power that apparently has been underutilized in the realm of tourism management. But you, Luigi, or Madeleine, or Juan Pablo, plan to wave a tourist go home sign in front of a family that's spending money at your restaurants, tipping your hotel maids, and supporting your museums. Brilliant. You really should be pointing a finger at the leaders who are turning Europe into Disneyland, not the people waiting in line to buy a ticket. Daniel Pardo, or Daniel Pardo probably, a spokesman for the Southern European Network Against Touristification, made a strong point that over-tourism isn't the problem in Europe. It's governmental culpability that favors tourism and its revenues over the quality of life enjoyed or not by its citizens. Quote, "The problem is not tourists," Pardo recently told the New York Times. Quote, "Tourists are the visible symptom of the problem. The problem is the system." And for those angry residents of Amsterdam, Barcelona, Venice, and elsewhere in Europe, a bit of advice. Come play tourist in New York anytime you want. We'll welcome you with open arms. And I promise, not a squirt gun in sight. Thanks for coming by, guys. And this goes out to everybody in Europe who now hates me. Mwah! Love you, bye.
Swing